Buying land in a part of the country that you don't live in can be pretty difficult. Let us tell you how we did it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. This is Kevin and Sarah, and we decided to take kind of a reprieve back into the woods today. It's nice and shady back here because it is hot out everywhere else.
And it's so muggy. It's so ridiculous outside right now. You can barely even stand it.
Yeah, they said it's supposed to be about 97 with the heat index today, and I bet it's 70% humidity.
Ooh,
it's terrible. We're supposed to be getting some rain later, but as of right now, it's just hot and humid.
And nasty.
But back here, there's ticks. Anyway, so we wanted to talk to you guys today about a question that we're getting more and more often, in fact, several times a week.
And I think maybe it's the time of year where people are dreaming about moving, they're looking at properties, the kids are out of school. I think there's kind of a heightened excitement to maybe get out of the rat race and out of the cities and move out to the country. So a lot of questions just recently about how we did it. How did we find land and buy land out in the country while we were still living in the city? We came from the Phoenix, Arizona area, and we ended up buying kind of in the middle of the country in the Ozarks of Missouri.
So we started, like most people these days, we started by looking online. Now we're going to assume that you've already kind of narrowed it down to the part of the country that you want to be in. You know, it really depends, you know, what you want for seasons. Do you want a long winter? Do you want, you know, a short winter? Or, you know, so we're going to assume that you've narrowed it down to a part of the country that you prefer to be in.
Right.
So we're not going to go over much of that in this video.
Right, yeah. We narrowed it down to Missouri because we wanted the Midwest, we wanted water, least restrictions on farming, selling, buying, those kinds of things.
Right. The
building
seasons
codes.
are all pretty mild.
Yeah, sales tax is low, property tax is low.
Right. So that's how we ended up picking Missouri. So then, like most people, what we did is we started by looking online. We started looking at, you know, sites like Zillow and some of the other real estate sites. I mean, really, Zillow, I think, was probably the biggest one that we used. And what we did is we looked at different parts of Missouri, and we looked at the prices in different parts of Missouri to figure out, okay, could we even afford to live in the part that we wanted to live in? Because, you know, there's no point in getting your hopes up about moving to a certain area only to find out that all of the properties there are, you know, twice what you can afford.
Right, absolutely.
You know, and it's our recommendation, and the way that we live our lives is to try to do this as debt-free as possible. You know, we knew that we would not be able to move out to the country, you know, and live the life that we want if we had debt. So for us, it was very important to find a place where we could move, we could take the money that we made on our house in the city and, you know, turn that into our dream property in the country.
Absolutely. So after we had done those things, the next step for us was to schedule a trip out to the Ozarks area in Missouri to kind of scout out the area and see what felt best for us, to see what the landscape was like and which part of Missouri and the Ozarks area we wanted to look in for our homestead. And what we found when we got here, honestly, is that the terrain is very different depending on where you're at. If you go 50 miles one way, it's like farmland. 50 miles this way, it's hilly and lots of woods, but lots of rock in the soil. And if we had not scheduled a trip out here to come scout out the area, we would have never known that.
Right. You know, one thing I think that we kind of didn't really understand, especially coming from the Phoenix area where, you know, it's desert. We would see pictures online of properties and everything was so nice and green, and so, you know, everything was growing, the trees and brush and everything else, and you assumed that that meant that it was good fertile soil. But that's not really the case. Where we're sitting right now on this part of our property, you can see it's nice heavily wooded area, but this is like solid rock right here. There's like no topsoil back here at all.
I was looking around to see if I could just show you how rocky it is, but I don't think, yeah, I mean,
you know, it's just, but not all of our property is like that.
Right.
But some of the properties around here, you might buy 40 acres and the entire thing might be like that. And you're just not gonna know, you know, how rocky a property is, or what, you know, you might not gonna know how great it is until you're actually there yourself and can dig around in the dirt.
Right. And I think equally important, after you schedule a trip out here and decide what part of the area you want to live in, you need to find a local realtor to start a relationship with, so that you can go back home, resume your life, and then be in contact with them so they can be looking at listings for you. And you can have that conversation of what you're looking for. They can try to match that up to find some options for you within your price range.
Right. Now, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that, you know, in a rural area, there's just not going to be the number of properties that there are in an urban area. You know, when we bought a house in Arizona, when we lived in the city, you know, if we went to Zillow and put in, you know, we want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a neighborhood, there might be 8,000 houses to pick from. But in rural Missouri, if we want, you know, a house and 2 barns and 15 acres of land, there might be 3 houses to choose from in the entire area. So you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to fight the urge to spend more than you were planning.
Right.
And you're going to have to fight the urge to take something that isn't exactly what you're looking for.
Right, or might need more money than you have or are willing to spend.
Another tick.
To fix it up into what will work for you and your family. The other thing that I want to mention is that keep in mind when you're working with a realtor, you're really working with a salesperson. And even though they, you know, want to help you find the property of your dreams, ultimately they're a salesperson. So we recommend that you look for other homesteaders in the area that you're looking for and at least connect with them. So you have a real world opportunity to ask them questions about the area you're hoping to live in.
Right. You know, we live in an extraordinary time where it's easier than ever to connect with people that you don't even know, which is why we get so many emails and questions on these subjects. We don't mind answering those. You know, we get a lot of them.
We do.
But no matter what part of the country you're looking in, my guess is there's someone in that area who's already homesteading and is already either on YouTube or has a blog or in some way you can you know, talk to.
Right.
Maybe you find out if there's a farmer's market in the area and get a list of the vendors at the farmer's market and, you know, look them up that way.
That's a great idea.
But, you know, just find someone in that area that you can talk to who isn't a salesperson, so you can get a real good idea. So after you've scheduled your trip and you've looked around, you really decided that the area that you're in is really where you want to be. Now you go back to your life in the city, and then what?
You keep looking. You keep looking online. You keep communicating with your realtor, keep communicating with other people within the community about that area, and keep looking for listings.
And keep praying. Honestly, keep praying that God will lead you to a property that you're supposed to be on.
And that it's in His timing. You know, the hardest thing that we ever had to do was to be patient and to...
We're not patient people.
No, we're very impatient people. Ask our realtors. Just keep praying and keep listening for you know, God's will, God's timing, and for the perfect place, your place, to be brought to your attention.
Yeah. So now you're back home. You're looking online. You know, here's where it starts to get a little tricky. You're going to have to schedule more than one trip to wherever you're going. Now I know that can seem like a financial burden, and it may be a financial burden to do that, but in the long run, it's better to spend maybe $1,000 to avoid $100,000 mistake,
right,
than it is to, make that $100,000 mistake.
We have talked with, we have read emails and communications with people all over the place who have purchased land sight unseen. And here, we've had several people we've talked to who have purchased places sight unseen, and it has been a disaster for them.
We met one who
another tick,
who is very, very happy.
One who's been happy.
Right.
Several that have been very, very unhappy, or they're stuck with it. They're going to live with it, but now they have to put in tens of thousands of dollars into a property, into the house or something like that, in order to make it usable and livable. Right.
In fact, we met one person who bought a house sight unseen. The realtor, said it was a livable house. They got out here, and really the house hadn't been lived in 30 years. Raccoons and possums were living in the house. The electric company wouldn't even turn electric on in the house because it was so much of a hazard. And honestly, after about 2 months of trying to fix the house up enough to live in, they ended up having to sell the place and basically lose their dream.
Right, absolutely. We don't want that to happen to you. So that's why, in our opinion, it is so important to have some listings in mind and to make the trip out and to look at them, even if it's just, if you're a married couple, even if it's just one of you that goes out.
Right, and keep in mind, it's not a vacation every time you're going. You're not having to go to, the amusement park and treat the it doesn't have to be an expensive trip. If you need to take a trip out and sleep in your car in the Walmart parking lot in the nearest town, but it's so important to actually be able to look at the properties where you're going to hopefully spend the rest of your life.
Now, when we were buying property in the Missouri Ozarks and we were living in the Phoenix, Arizona area, we ended up coming out, we flew out here 2 times, and then you drove out here by yourself at least 2 times.
Once before we put an offer in, and once right after we put the offer in.
Right, so we were out here 4 times before we had the house in our name, before we were finished and
Another
closed.
tick. They're terrible. Those guineas need to grow.
I know. So you guys, I hope that gave you some insight as to what we did to buy property across the country, what we recommend that you do to buy property from across the country, and it can be done. It's a little harder than just buying property 30 minutes away, but across the country may be where your dream life is going to be. There are ways to do it smartly, and I think a storm is coming, so we need to hurry this up. If this is your first time visiting our homestead, welcome. We're so glad to have you, and right now is the perfect time to hit the subscribe button below. If you are one of our faithful traditionalists that comes back for every video, you guys, we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. Until next time, you guys, thanks so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.